Why did America change so dramatically during the 1920s? Although we tend to think of the changes happening as tied to the behaviors of society, we tend to forget what causes the changes in behavior. American culture changed because of the dramatic innovations that happened in the 1920s. First was the rapid economic growth, second was the rise of mass media, and third was the technological innovation. First, rapid economic growth. This happened because an increase of natural resource extraction, electrification, and Republican government. We often focus on the stock market bubble, but not what led up to it. Growing wealth led to more careless spending. Quote, the United States of America had an essential supply of natural resources such as timber, iron, coal, minerals, oil, and land. This enabled America to become a huge economic power at the beginning of the 20th century. These resources were an important foundation for the economy, unquote, according to Gene Smiley. Increased extraction led to an increase of money spent on these now that they were more readily available and also cheaper. The electrification was beyond even just lighting everywhere. It led to more time and other things either making or spending money. The third factor was the economic growth of the economic growth was a Republican government. Businesses greatly expanded without limits. Oh, the resources included oil. Oil powers America. In the 1920s, Los Angeles wasn't famous for film. It was famous because it produced about 25% of the entire world's oil. Although now it's hidden up, large oil rigs are still digging it up. It had been a large target in the 1920s. The credit system also enabled people to buy these now tapped into natural resources. Second was the rise of mass media. This was the first time in American history that America was united by one single media culture. The three major parts of this were music, movies, and fashion. But how did America's cultures combine? What made it possible? For music, it was greatly influenced by the rise of sheet music. According to Richard Middleton, quote, the most significant feature of the emergent popular music industry of the late 18th and early 19th centuries was the extent of its focus on the commodity form of sheet music, unquote. This let almost all Americans be able to play or hear many songs of the time. This music was partially popular because it combined styles from all over the United States of America. Europe had developed its own styles of music. This transferred over with immigrants and early colonists. At the same time, former slaves and their descendants also developed their own style. In cities, especially in the South, such as New Orleans, they often combined. This resulted in ragtime. This eventually evolved into jazz, which is now more commonly known as jazz, but most commonly now it's known as Dixieland. After losing its connotation as bar music, it became widespread across the entirety of America. Another major influence was movies. They started as only being silent films. Edison had a patent, so everyone had to pay him a fee to make any movie. But they went to the West Coast to avoid this, and this led to the rise of Hollywood, which had been in a small town, but after a few movies had been filmed there to avoid the copyright laws, it became widely popular to film movies there, and it's now one of the film capitals of the world. The fashion industry, also turning to mass production, was also greatly influential in this. And finally, there was the technological revolution. But the 1920s were a period of dramatic technological change that transformed the fundamental structure of the economy, altered the nature of the family, and challenged the social norms of the 19th century, unquote, according to Thomas F. Cooley. Among these innovations were the electric iron, the washing machine, the fridge, sunglasses, bulldozers, and much more throughout every industry. One of the most influential was cars. Henry Ford was a pioneer of this industry. He produced more cars and sold them for less, and they were more and more, so they became more and more common. After this, people could move much farther away from cities and could buy a larger variety of things. Another major technological impact was the variety of kitchen technologies that were invented. Before the 19th century, cooking was an all-day process or occupation. It took an average of 6 to 7 hours or food prep each day. The 1920s was the moment where this changed. Once we could conquer distance with the car and greatly shorten time on cooking, we had much more free time. The more time led to more inventions. The rise of the radio connected America to each other. The invention of electrical instruments increased the possibilities in music making. So, through the combined technological information and the rise of mass media, which was also partially due to these technological innovations, and the rapid economic growth, these led to the social changes in the 19th century, in the 1920s, that led to a huge change throughout America. Thank you.